You just know that on this, the hottest day that has ever existed, in a tent somewhere in rural England, a group of people are desperately trying to temper chocolate. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today, as Bake Off is coming back this week, I have taken a look at some books that I think you would love if, like me, you absolutely adore Bake Off. The Great British Bake Off is one of my autumn staples. I watch it every single year without fail, and I too do feel a little bit of a rush of adrenaline when bakes don't go right, when Paul Hollywood gives out a handshake, when you have got the winner announced. It just screams autumn for me. So if you are in that same vibe and you want to read books that have cozy, foodie feelings, these are definitely going to be up your street. Starting off with The Little Brooklyn Bakery by Julie Kaplan. This is actually the second book of the Romantic Escape series, but don't worry, you can completely read these out of order. You don't necessarily need to have read the first one because it's a completely different city, it's a completely different set of people, it's a completely different main character who hasn't appeared in the first one at all, so you have no problems. You are not going to get completely lost in this story. This book follows Sophie, who is a food editor for a really successful magazine, but she has just gone through a massive heartbreak. So she heads off for New York on an assignment and is thinking here about completely distracting herself by throwing herself into her work. The problem is that the apartment she has rented is right above a bakery, and the owner of this bakery, Todd, is making her get a little bit distracted from trying to distract herself with work. This book features so many New York favorites. It's got bagels, it's got deep dish pizza, it's got everything you know and love when you're thinking about food in New York. And if you are looking for an escape this year, this is definitely the book for you. Next is The Cherry Tree Cafe by Heidi Swain, and this is the first of the Windbridge series, which are set in a small little village in the UK. This follows Lizzie, who has just been dumped by her boyfriend and decides to go and mend her broken heart back in the small little village that she grew up in, Windbridge. Her best friend Gemma is super excited to hear that Lizzie is coming back because Lizzie has got phenomenal sewing skills, and Gemma has just opened up a cafe and a bakery where Lizzie's skills are going to be really helpful to get Gemma's cafe looking like the Instagram dream that she wants it to be. This is again filled with so many sugary delights. It's got loads of cupcakes in there. It's got loads of like afternoon tea ideas. And if that sounds like it's on for you, go and pick this one up. Next up is The Summer of Hopes and Dreams by Lindsay James. And this one follows Cleo, who, like the previous two books, has had a bit of a difficult year. She has just been in an accident that has not just shattered her leg, but also her self-confidence. She wanted to be a dancer, but this injury has completely set that to the side. She had dreams of being a star baker, but again, her self-confidence has been completely blown and she doesn't believe in herself anymore. Cleo is starting to get her life back on track. She is going to the gym, she is starting to watch what she's eating, she's living a much healthier lifestyle, and she has caught the eye of her personal trainer Scott, and things are starting to heat up between the two of them. I absolutely loved seeing Cleo come back to herself. I loved seeing the food descriptions in this book, and I loved watching her confidence in the kitchen come back as we go throughout this book. It's such a lovely, cozy read. Like the two books that I've mentioned before, if you love anything that is set in small town England, if you love kind of cozy vibes for the autumn, these are definitely books that you want to pick up. Next up is a YA book, and it is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. Now, this doesn't necessarily feature baking very heavily, but Lara Jean is like a little baking prodigy. You've got so many descriptions in this book of Lara Jean baking sugar cookies for the people that she's going to visit, or helping out with Thanksgiving dinner by making the desserts, and that is why it's on this list. It's not completely about food, and it's not completely about baking. It's actually more of a love story, fake dating, love triangle-y type story. But there are so many little cozy food vibes in this that I felt like it would be remiss not to mention it. Next up is Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. And if you ever wanted to see Bake Off in a book, read this one. This book follows Rosalind, who dropped out of college to take care of her daughter Amelie, but finances are starting to get a little bit slim for the two at the moment. Rent isn't always being met, bills aren't always being paid, and Rosalind is in a little bit of a sticky wicket. A little saviour comes by in the form of an application form for a baking show, and Rosalind decides, you know what, how bad can it get? I'm going to apply. She goes on, she bakes, and she starts falling for one of her contestants. What I love about this book is that it also has LGBT rep in it. Rosalind herself is bisexual, and I love seeing a bisexual character in a book, so that was a huge draw in for me. Next up is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox, and I think this one is best waited until the end of the run of Bake Off because it's got a little bit of a Christmassy vibe to it. This follows identical twins Cass and Charlie. Cass still lives in the hometown that the two grew up in and is running a bakery, while Charlie is a well-established baker and is actually the judge on a successful TV baking show. Charlie is up for a presenting role, and she and one of her co-workers have been battling it out with each other to try and get this top spot. One day, Charlie suffers a concussion while she's at work, and it has completely affected how she smells and how she tastes. Not great news if you are a food judge on a food TV show. Because Charlie really needs to get this job, she cannot afford to take any time off, so she calls in her sister to swap places. Charlie is going to go back to their hometown and get Cass's bakery up and running, while Cass is going to come to LA and pretend to be her sister. While they're both there, they do get a little bit distracted by other members of the town, and their plan is starting to fall apart because of this. Next up is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly, and this again has got some LGBT rep in it, as you're following London, who is a TV cooking show's first ever non-binary contestant, and also Dahlia, who is bisexual and is coming out of a divorce. The two of them have signed up for this TV show, Dahlia so that she can reinvent herself after her divorce, and London to kind of give themselves a new identity and give them something to kind of concentrate on, because life has not been very gentle to London recently. While they are there, things start to heat up in the kitchen, but also things start to really steam up between London and Dahlia off screen. I really loved this book, but I will say that I felt a little bit disappointed by how the cooking show was portrayed. I do feel like it needed a little bit more of an insight. I feel like I needed a little bit more of a context of what they were doing on this day and why they were doing it and who was being eliminated and why they were up for elimination in the first place. But all of that aside, it's such a great book and I am sure you will enjoy it. Next up is Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley, and I have heard so many good things about this book. I've had it on my radar for such a long time that I think it's going to have to be one of my next reads. This follows Jada, who is probably America's most hated woman at the moment because she has turned down a marriage proposal live on TV while on some kind of show like The Bachelor. She goes back home to San Diego to take her mind off of it and to lick her wounds, and while she is there finds herself working for a bakery run by Donovan. Donovan is a former football player turned baker, and accidentally people have gotten the idea that while they're working there, they're also in a relationship together. They decide to capitalize on this and use it for a little bit of marketing, for advertisement, and to help the bakery kind of get on its feet. But of course, as they're fake dating, real feelings start to come through. I am obsessed with fake dating books. I absolutely love books that have to do with food or baking or cooking. So any of those combinations, and I think I'm onto a winner here. Finally is The Romance Recipe by Ruby Barrett, and this is another LGBT story following Amy, who is a restaurant owner and who hires Sophie to be the restaurant manager and the restaurant head chef. She's not expecting to fall in love with Sophie. Sophie is a former reality TV star. She has only recently come to terms with her sexuality, and she is a little bit of a grump in the kitchen and a sunshine in the streets, which I am so excited to see how that is going to play out. I cannot wait to get my hands on this book. I know a couple of people who've already read it and they absolutely adored it, so I have got to check it out for myself. Those are just some books that I think you should pick up if, like me, you have been waiting for the return of Bake Off all year. What books have you loved recently that have anything to do with food or baking or cooking? Do let me know in the comments below. Or if you can't think of anything to say, then just leave me the chef emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.